and welcome to Forum 360, your station that is the Fusion Channels, PBS, Western Reserve Public Media, and we're also heard on Rubber City Radio. I'm your host of Forum 360 today, Bill Stephen Saus, and today an interesting topic where our program always deals with a global outlook and a local view. We're talking about the Hamburg that we eat probably every week. We'll have a Hamburg. Around the world, larger corporations such as McDonald's and so forth have put Hamburgs around the world. But did you know that within 200 miles of Northeast Ohio, it started by an Ohio family, the Hamburg was invented. And today we have a couple folks from the Menches brothers. The Menches brothers restaurant started here in Northeast Ohio, had its heritage in making some of the best food locally and nationally. Today we have John Menches from the Menches brothers. Welcome to Forum 360. And Gary Allman, his public relations coordinator. Gary, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
And today we are also going to reveal a new book, which is out this year, Hamburger Dreams. And this book is an interesting book by a man named Christopher Caruso, who writes this book like an investigative journalist would, almost like a detective story. Where did the Hamburg start? And it mentions the subtitle, How Classic Crime-Solving Techniques Helped Crack the Case of Hamburger's Greatest Culinary Mystery. Where did the hamburger come from? We're going to talk about that. 200 miles to the northeast of us, Buffalo, New York, Erie County, New York. There is a small village called Hamburg, become a city or a town now. And in that town, the Menches brothers, forefathers of our guest, John Menches, went to get involved in the county fair, which is now, even today, one of the largest county fairs in the United States. Fifth largest now in the United States, probably one of the biggest east of the Mississippi. And John Menches, tell us a little bit how your family got involved. Your family was originally from the Canton area, here in Northeast Ohio.
My great-grandfather and my great-uncle Frank were from Canton, Ohio. They started many of their businesses there, and shortly moved to Akron. But what they did, they were very big in circuses, and then they became very big in concessioning. Long story short, if you don't know where Hamburg, New York is, it sits right on the mouth of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway that gets out to the Atlantic Ocean. And you say to yourself, why would they ever go from Canton, Ohio in 1885 to there? I mean, that's a long ways. If you think about our country in 1885, anything west of the Mississippi was still frontier.
Very much so.
So they made the trip up there because late in the fall, all the ships that are in the Great Lakes need to get out that St. Lawrence to get to the Atlantic Ocean before the Great Lakes froze over. So they had a big commerce fair there. This is where they dumped all their remaining cargo, and that's where everybody went. That's why Hamburg, New York was still one of the largest today, Bill.
And so it's right outside of Buffalo, which is a major city in northeast United States.
6 miles south of Buffalo.
6
right
miles
on
south of
990.
Buffalo. And it is still the county fair there. Now, tell me a little bit about why your family had to come up with a creative way. According to the book, they were running out of some normal sandwiches that they normally make, and some of what were they making up to the point that when they decided let's be innovative, and come up with a hamburger? What were they doing?
You need to know a little more of what was going on in our country at the time. If you think back, just take your minds and focus back. Two things you need to add to the location, why they were there. Your social norms back then was your festivals and your fairs were your highest society events. There's nothing bigger. That's why we remember the people in their tuxes and their suits, and the women in their dresses and their umbrellas. That was the highest event. Coupling that with sausage was king. Sausage was king. You could preserve sausage. So all kinds of different sausages was the main thing. Now, ground chuck, before we called it ground beef, it was always known. It's been known since day one, but the kicker is it was more for the lower class people. So you didn't dare want to sell ground chuck at the fairs like we do today. So we were doing the sausage. My great-grandfather was doing the sausage and had a great day. And the book will tell you the weather was hot and everything was going good and we ran out of sausage. My great-grandfather Charles went to the local butcher, tried to get some more sausage, and there was none to be had. He was talked into using ground chuck. It's the kind, if you guys remember, you take it and you beat it up with a claw hammer and make it stop. So he took this and he went ahead like us typical Americans, fried it up, and the first ground chuck, whatever you want to call it, turned out to be a hockey puck.
Oh boy.
It was burned on both sides and not cooked in the middle.
A little hard on the outside.
So that didn't go over so good. And if you think about it, what'd they have to cook with? Black cast iron skillet, the hardwood stove heated by wood or coal. Your temperature's hotter, so therefore you got. So my great-grandfather had to improvise. And what he did is he had to thinking on his feet. He took the ground chuck mix, he added some coffee from the coffee pot, he added some brown sugar, some other household ingredients, mixed it up, put it on that skillet, and it come out pretty decent. Not only did it come out decent, Bill, it gave off a nice aroma. Right. And a passerby came through and smelled that aroma and says, hey, that smells pretty good. What do you got there? My great Uncle Frank says, well, it's a new sandwich we're going to come out with. So this gentleman got to try it.
And he liked it, and that started the continual use of the. And then your grandfathers said, well, it came from Hamburg, New York. So is that how you associated the name?
Well, here's how the name came about. This gentleman liked it, and my great Uncle Frank is the one who served it to him. And this gentleman says, well, hey, what are you going to call it? Now, he didn't know what to call it, but he did look up and seen the Hamburg Fair banner.
Right.
And he goes, it's a Hamburg. And that's how it's got its name. It's as simple as that. And we use that same recipe because we found the recipe in 1991 through our old family documents. And guess what? That's what we serve now at our restaurant, and it's a very good sandwich.
Now, because your family is here in Northeast Ohio, you made it so famous. Now, the name, the Hamburg, and there was actually, for many years, and we anticipate in the future too, the city of Akron cooperating, Summit County, with a downtown Hamburg festival. And Gary's here a little bit. How did that get started? I know the Menches Brothers restaurant was the anchor restaurant for that
the
organization.
pioneer, and I think it's been 12 years.
12 years.
And it's a consortium of not only the leading restaurants, but also the city of Akron.
Right.
And benefiting the Akron Children's Hospital. But they wanted a venue to feature hamburgers. And
because the pioneer family was from this area.
Yeah, and through those years, there were people that came and went, but Menches Brothers has always been the keynote restaurant.
And many of the people that get involved are from New York, upstate New York. They come down, they help bring the history of the connection between these two areas, Northeast Ohio and Western New York.
Yes.
And Lake Erie, of course, being the connection, and the fairs. Now we have fairs all over the United States to this day, the county fair system. And when you talk about the Hamburg Fair, just like in Mahoning County, they call it the Canfield Fair.
That's correct.
And it becomes, well, you're going to the fair. So that's the connection.
When you come to our restaurant, we have a picture. It's about 20 foot long by about 8 foot high of the Canfield Fair. My great grandfather used to do that fair. It's
Right.
pretty good. We should mention that Dave Lieberth of Akron. Without Dave Lieberth, we wouldn't have this festival here in Akron.
Right.
He was a very big cornerstone to make that happen.
Dave Lieberth, one of the pioneer broadcasters, at WHLO, and then he became active as an attorney and as a member of the historical, involved in the history of Akron, and when he worked for the city of Akron. And we appreciate all that Dave Lieberth has done. Now, I'm going to add something to that.
Okay.
We also have an interesting food that I and my family always get involved with when we go to the fairs, caramel corn.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about how, not only, if you look at the logo of this bag, it says Menches Brothers, the inventors of the hamburger, and the original caramel corn popcorn. Your family got involved in popcorn also, so tell us about that invention. I think we should add that in.
Well, you know, that's kind of a neat story, too. My great-grandfather, as we now know, he traveled quite a bit. He was a large concessionaire. And he did the Ohio State Fair and the West Virginia State Fair 3 years exclusively, so that's how large they were. But we had a family special friend. His name was William McKinley.
Oh, yes.
And William McKinley was good friends of the Mencheses and out of Canton when he was an attorney. But when he became governor of Ohio, my great-grandfather needed an endorsement to get into the Chicago's World's Fair in 1893. William McKinley supplied that information. We got to go to the Chicago's World's Fair, and my great-grandfather, even though we sold popcorn, he decided to put caramel corn together. And that's when he created the Gee Whiz, that's what we call it, the original caramel corn, in 1893 at the Chicago's World's Fair. Later, in 1897, the Borden's Company did what we all grew up with called Cracker Jacks.
Right. We see that at the baseball games. And we have the Gee Whiz here, and I think you could still buy these
at our restaurants,
at the Menches Brothers restaurants.
Right.
Now, Gary, where are the restaurants currently?
Well, there are three. The original one is in Green right now, but there are two others, one in downtown Massillon and the other one in Perry in Canton, right across from Canton Central Catholic.
Very good. Now, we are also going to talk about the book, and the book is coming out. I think Amazon.com and other organizations that sell books, other booksellers, are going to be bringing this book, Hamburger Dreams, by Christopher Carosa. Tell us a little bit about, we have a second or two to talk about Christopher. How did you meet Christopher? And then we're going to talk about that in the second part of our Forum 360 today.
Christopher knew about the Menches brothers because Christopher lives in Rochester, New York. And his family always been, for like 40 years, participated in the Erie County Fair, Hamburg Fair. And so they always know, everybody there knows the story of the Hamburg there. So Christopher's also a writer of other books, and he came to Akron to visit the Football Hall of Fame. He knew the Mencheses were in Akron, and he looked us up on his GPS, and he came into my restaurant. And that's how I met Christopher.
Very good. And he got involved in doing so much research. He contacted people from across the country that put hamburgers on their menu. And of course, we also have other companies that are selling hamburgers around the world now, as we mentioned. You're listening to Forum 360 on Rubber City Radio, and you're watching Forum 360 on Fusion Public TV, Western Reserve Public TV here in Northeast Ohio. And today we are blessed to have the Menches brothers representative, John Menches, and his compatriot here, who is active as Public Relations Director, Gary Allman. Yes. And Gary, the Menches brothers tradition has been going on not only in the Green Akron area, but the Massillon Canton for over 100 years. So besides the Cracker Jack's predecessor, the Gee Whiz, which is the caramel corn, and besides the hamburger, what are some of the other things? I know there's, if you like ice cream, there's something I think we should talk about also. An invention?
Also famous for waffle cones.
Waffle cones.
Waffle cones here.
Tell me about that, John.
I know it seems hard that here we have Charles and Frank Menches, who invented the world's first hamburger, caramel corn, and now the original ice cream cone. And I'll tell you how that worked in a minute. And yet, nobody knows their names.
Oh, boy.
We should have all known their names.
Right.
Christopher's helping us bring that to light.
Bring the Menches brothers' name out.
But as we also know, Menches Brothers was friends of Bill McKinley.
The president, later the
Bill
president of the
McKinley,
United
I should
States.
be more respectful, yeah. And also, after the 1893 Chicago's World's Fair, we also did the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. Now, most people won't recollect, but the St. Louis World's Fair is supposed to be in 1903, but with the assassination of President McKinley, they pushed it out. Theodore Roosevelt pushed it out a year.
He was assassinated in Buffalo, by the way.
That's correct.
Which, there again, it's that
Coordination.
connection.
But my great-grandfather was serving ice cream on little plates. And, of course, had a great day, and he ran out of these little plates. And remember, the women still were in the umbrellas and the dresses, and you wanted to keep them clean.
Right.
So without having anything to serve them on, they had to think about it. Now, what they did know is in 1897, the Italians came out with the pizzelle cookie. You know the old Italian press cookie?
Yes, the pizzelles.
And what they tried to do is to try to make that and push it down a little bit and make a bowl. It didn't work too good. But later then, there was a Parisian waffle maker up the aisle from my great-grandfather. He looked at those irons. He went and bought a set of irons, came down. And if anybody knows what a sailor's fit is, F-I-D, it's a conical wooden dowel that would splice rope. Sailors used to use it a lot. They took that pizzelle cookie, and you have about 10 seconds to roll it, and when it cools, you had your world's first ice cream cone.
Wow.
And we have some of those samples in the restaurant.
And I definitely love those kind of cones. And now again, many ice cream purveyors and folks that sell ice cream are using the cones that your forefathers invented.
In fact, we still have the original machine.
We have one of 3 machines that was built after the World's Fair.
And I think you said the Summit County Historical Society has some of these items.
Yeah, they have one of our original premium waffles that we used to make here in the city of Akron, one of the original patents that we have. And they have it on display somewhere.
Now, Menches Brothers has the hamburger. And you said that Hamburger is kind of a slang. Hamburg, they actually attributed it to the town of Hamburg, New York.
Correct.
So we've kind of changed that over the years, correct?
Well, you know, us Americans, we get a little sloppy with our English, and it's a hamburger is what we all call them today, but really it's a hamburger.
And you know, this is a traditional burger, and I've had these hamburgers. You go to Menches Brothers, you and your chefs and your cooks. Give me an example what you put into that hamburger. You've got so many varieties. Now, we're not talking about the little sliders that another, the Columbus-based White Castle has. These are large, the culinary experts know that these are regular size hamburgers. Give me the type of recipes and what you put together with.
Well, first of all, our hamburger is very unique and it tastes very well. And I like to tell everybody, I won't ever say this is the greatest hamburger you have. I think it's very, very good. But from this day forward, you now have a standard in which you judge all your own hamburgers by. Right. So we finally have a standard.
So this is it.
But we have 50 different hamburgers at our restaurant. We have everything from spice burgers to buffalo burgers to...
so it's the condiments.
It's the condiments and
the buns.
It's a very special made bun that we have. Actually, we use a roll and we slice it ourselves. And it's a nice homemade roll. And you just have to come and see them. 50.
I have to ask
Gary, you want to answer?
I have to ask Gary. Gary, what are some of the people that are saying it couldn't have been Northeast Ohio that invented this? People from the Northeast Ohio area. What are some of the critics saying?
Well, I think the fact that you're talking about the hamburger, an iconic sandwich that everybody can relate to. It's fun. Everybody has their favorite.
Right.
And people love to talk about food, and there's nothing like talking about their favorite food too.
Yeah.
So there are other people that lay claims to it.
That's what I noticed from the book.
And we honor that, and we expect their energy. But the fact that we documented where we were, the fact that the two brothers and the energy that they had was just fantastic. And the fact that they put it together, the family is now taking it to the next, the third, fourth generation. It's like lightning in a bottle. And we're looking forward to the next generation taking it to the next level. We're now celebrating our 25th year as a restaurant there in Greene. And we have 3 now. So we're celebrating with a number of different things this year.
And like I said, we hope to get the Akron city to again be our venue for the International Hamburger Festival. And one of our friends that mutual friends, Dave Okarma, Coondog
Yes.
Okarma, one of the hosts of that
My
program.
buddy, Coondog.
And he provides, he sets up the contest for how many hamburgers you can eat and what type of condiments you put on it. He and some of the guests that get involved from out of town make this an enjoyable event. We're hoping to see it return to the Akron area once the downtown construction of downtown Akron is improving, and we're hoping for the future. But what are some of the highlights of some of the past hamburger festivals that you attended? Do you remember anything that really caught you as something impressed because you're here in Northeast Ohio?
Well, there are 2 though. One the book talks a little bit about is Seymour, Wisconsin. Seymour, Wisconsin really celebrates what they claim to have invented the hamburger. But I give them credit. I said, I'll give you, since you're in Wisconsin, you get cheeseburgers.
Right, right. There are
we'll
differences.
Take the hamburger,
there are
you
differences.
Put the cheese in it. But their town really goes all out for their celebration, and it's talked about in the book. It's really great. But here in Akron, one of our first events is we had the trial. We had one of the Summa County judges put on a trial. We had a mock trial. It was a lot of fun with the 4 cities represented: New Haven, Connecticut, Athens, Texas, Seymour, Wisconsin, and Hamburg, New York. It was a fun event, and we bring a lot of people to it. So we get a lot of nice participation in our festival, and I hope it continues as soon as the streets get cleaned up.
I hope so, and we anticipate the Hamburger Festival, I think one of the nicest food festivals we have in Northern Ohio.
And building upon that, with the excitement and people wanting to taste the hamburgers outside of the restaurant, we came up with our own trailer.
You're right.
So we have a hamburger trailer. In fact, it's parked outside of our restaurant now on Maslin Road. So be looking for the trailer and a lot of events and corporate catering events this year. We're really excited because you can see our iconic hamburger, and I think it's about 6 foot high on the side of the trailer.
And when you go to the restaurants, the Menches Brothers restaurants, you'll see that fantastic logo.
Yeah.
And we've got your forefathers, your great-great uncle and your great-great-grandfather involved. And the Menches Brothers, we have the creators of the Hamburg, the waffle ice cream cone, and the caramel cone. So we've been able to talk about how history, culinary art has really exhibited strong evidence here in Northeast Ohio. The Menches Brothers today still follows the quality control that your forefathers wanted. And we talk about the fact that Charles and Frank. Now, you were the great-grandson
Of Charles.
of Charles, and then your great-great-uncle,
Frank.
But we have that connection between Hamburg, New York, and it's right outside of Buffalo, south of Buffalo, the home of the Erie County Fair.
Correct.
And we have Akron and Greene and Maslin and Canton here in Northeast Ohio. So that's the connection between these 2 communities. And I think evidence, and I'm sure when you had the mock trial, the fact that the name has remained Hamburg. We don't call our Athens burger, we don't call it a Seymour burger from Wisconsin. It's the Hamburg that your forefathers produced originally in 1885.
Two things when you read the book and you read the stories. I don't want to discredit the other stories because they all have great backgrounds to them. But Menches Brothers is the only one that can tell you two things. One, there really was an original recipe. And two, how it was named Hamburg is through Menches Brothers and the Hamburg, New York.
Now there is a website for your company.
Yeah, it's menchesbrothers.com.
Menchesbrothers.com.
And you can see our full menu on there, promotes all three locations.
Okay, that's MENCHES brothers.com.
Yeah, BROS.
And I want to thank you for being with us, John Menches. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
And Gary Allman, thank you for being a part of a great family with a great tradition. And now we have discussed the history of the Hamburg and why it came right back here to Northeast Ohio. And we're so glad to have this type of program on Forum 360. Again, I'm Bill Stephen Saus, and we thank you for listening, and thank you for viewing Forum 360.
Thank you, Bill.
Forum 360 is brought to you by Electrical Impulse Communications, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, an anonymous donor, the Jewish Community Board of Akron, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Blue Green, and Forum 360 supporters.